We're having little problems with our VCR, so we're waiting for a replacement, and hopefully that won't take too long in the next 5 minutes or so. In the meantime, if there's anybody in the audience in need of hearing impaired services, if you'd come to the front, so we have someone here who will sign, who will be able to see you, whom you will be able to see better. We'd appreciate that. Thank you. Like we will not be accompanied by a video tonight as we were hoping, unfortunately. We just ordered this video from CNN. It's actually a tape of Rana Husseini, a program that was done by CNN in January of 1999, and we were hoping to show it to you to provide context for her talk tonight. But unfortunately, something's wrong with either the tape or the VCR, so we're not going to be able to provide that for you. We still have a great program planned, and we want to welcome everybody here to Keller Hall at the University of Richmond. My name is Juliette Landphair, and I'm the Assistant Director of the Women Involved in Living and Learning WIL program here at the university. Both WIL and the Women's Studies program are pleased to bring Rana Husseini here, particularly today, March 1st, which is the first day of Women's History Month. We also want to welcome faculty and students who have come here from other institutions throughout the state of Virginia. And those schools are Randolph-Macon, Longwood College, and Washington and Lee University. So they've traveled from mountainous areas, from not mountainous areas, et cetera, to be here. So we're very excited to have all of you. And as some of you, many of you probably know, actually WNL and Longwood College are in the process of implementing WIL-like programs. So in other words, they're replicating the WIL program from the University of Richmond in different ways on their campuses. So we're particularly pleased about that and take great pride in that and welcome all of you new WIL students to our campus. The subject of honor killings actually came to our attention here at WIL and the Women's Studies programs due to the work of two sophomore students who are now juniors, Laura Haddad and Candice Renka. As part of their WIL sophomore colloquium, Candice and Laura focused on spreading awareness about honor killings across our campus. And it was through their work and the airing of this program that we were going to see that we learned about Rana Husseini and the work that she has done and is doing in her native Jordan. So we asked Laura and Candice to introduce Rana here tonight. So I'm going to start by introducing Candice. She's now a junior, an English major, and a Women's Studies minor. Anything? You students all have many majors and minors? No, okay, I got it, okay. So Candice is here to help us do the introductions. Candice?
Hello everyone, and thank you for coming tonight. It's good to see everyone here. Well, Juliette also already said a little bit about me, but again, I'm glad that everyone's here in celebration of WIL and Women's Studies' 20th anniversary, as well as the beginning of Women's History Month. A year ago, I didn't know anything about honor killings. I had never heard of them at all. I was talking to my friend Laura Haddad, and we were trying to decide what to do for our WIL action project. And she began to tell me about honor killings, and I was just very shocked. An honor killing it's a very complicated issue, but I'm going to try to sum it up in a sentence for you. It's the killing of a woman by a male family member because of actual or suspected sexual practices outside or before marriage. And there's many things that go into it, but I'm going to let Rana expand on that for you. So I will tell you, though, that I considered myself pretty aware of worldwide political issues, and I knew nothing about it. So I thank Laura for opening up my eyes to that. Through our project, we tried to spread awareness on campus so that other people would know about this issue. We feel that people need to be aware of these atrocities, but also look at them in a cultural context. We consider honor killings a human rights issue that needs to be addressed immediately, but we also understand that the initiative needs to come from the cultures the cultures that honor killings occur in. Although honor killings are not known to occur, at least on a large scale, in the United States, extreme violence against women is not far from home. Just a couple statistics, I'm not going to go on and on. In the United States in 1995, 30% of all female homicide victims were killed either by their husbands, former husbands, or boyfriends. Also, 26% of all rapes in the same year and sexual assaults were committed by husbands, former husbands, or boyfriends. Thousands of women are victims to extreme violence in the United States every year, and many are killed as a result. Yet we are quick to criticize other cultures for the way that they treat their women and be very critical of it without understanding the cultural context which they occur in. Because women are victims of violence everywhere in the world, it's evident that there are still very firm ideologies still in place that allow these things to occur. So right now I would like to introduce someone who's been a teacher, a friend, and an inspiration to me. Laura Haddad has opened my eyes to the plight of women in a part of the world that I knew nothing about. And she has just been an inspiration to me. And her courage in confronting these practices that are in her own culture has done nothing short of amaze me. Laura is a junior here. She's a leadership and women's studies double major. And she is going to introduce Rana Husseini. Thank you.
As I began my pursuit here at the university to help increase awareness of honor killings, I had to come to terms with my own personal fears and struggles. Despite having a relatively modern Jordanian family and an American mother, I was not exempt from my culture's notions of honor. While most women do not become victims of an honor killing, many face societal scrutiny and persecution for every action that may be perceived as immoral. Regardless of our religious or socioeconomic background, I realized that some values and beliefs society espouses allow for honor killings to occur. Therefore, it becomes our collective responsibility to be active agents in bringing about a change. We must try to look at other cultures without judging them by our own standards. Rather, we must examine the underlying issues behind practices such as honor killings, a complex combination of the relationship between culture, economics, and politics. The Middle East is not unique in terms of issues that relate to the inequality and violence against women. But while it is important for us to form strategies for common action, we must also realize that change ultimately comes from within. I am now very honored to introduce Rana Husseini. In 1993, she began to investigate, document, and expose honor killings through her work as a crime reporter for the Jordan Times. She has earned 2 rewards for her reporting: the 1995 Med News Prize Award for Best Article, Murder in the Name of Honor, and the Reebok Human Rights Award in 1998. She has also been featured on CNN, ABC, BBC, among others. In 1998, Rana worked as the regional coordinator for the United Nations Development Fund for Women's campaign to eliminate violence against women. Last year, she helped organize a grassroots movement in Jordan that resulted in the formation of the National Committee to Eliminate Crimes of Honor. Over 15,000 signatures were collected demanding the elimination of Article 340 in Jordan's Penal Code that offers leniency for those who commit honor crimes. Long before the international community became aware of honor killings, and long before the royal family took a stance against such crimes, Rana made it her passionate commitment to unravel the truth behind the mirage. She courageously broke the silence in unveiling the once unspoken crime of honor killings. She now continues to dedicate herself to the crusade of ending such crimes. Please join me in welcoming Rana Husseini.
Thank you very much. I'm tall, I guess. Is this crucial? Okay, thank you very much all for showing up. And as I heard, some of you came from other states. I really appreciate that. And I would like to thank also the WIL program for bringing me over to talk here. Although Candice and Laura spoke about the issue, but I think it's important also to know more from someone like me, because I've been in the issue for over 7 years now. But what I'm really glad for is that Laura and Candice really took up this issue, because it's a very important topic that has been addressed here in the US for the past 2 years, at least. To my knowledge, it's been in the media and all of that, and I felt that a lot of times it was misinterpreted. The whole issue, sometimes it would be related to religion or whatever, and I felt it's a great opportunity for me to come here and talk about the whole issue and all. Now, I don't like to talk a lot, so I'm going to speak maybe for 15 or 20 minutes about the issue, and then I would like to hear from you, whatever, any comment you want, any question, I'm willing to answer, because I don't want you to all sleep. I know this topic, you will not sleep, but still, I prefer also to hear from you if you have any comments. Before I start talking about the issue, I would like to define clearly what a crime of honor is. A crime of honor is when a male relative decides to take the life of his female relative because in his point of view or his family's point of view, she tarnished her family's reputation or image. And for some families, this tarnish could mean being engaged in a sexual relation outside of marriage, becoming pregnant out of wedlock, going out with a man, getting married against her family's wishes. In some cases, being raped, for incest rape, and sometimes for just suspicion or rumors. And sometimes families claim honor when in fact they kill their female relatives for other motives, mainly for inheritance reasons or financial reasons. Now there are two important things that I would like to emphasize. The first thing, and I want you please to remember this, because when I was speaking at a different university, and I emphasized these 2 points, and still at the end of the lecture I had one woman come and tell me, I'm glad that you don't have a brother, thinking that, of course, her sentence stems from her belief that every woman in Jordan or the Arab world is subject to being killed if she speaks to another man. Although I did emphasize this at the beginning of my lecture, that these crimes happen in certain areas, among certain families, mainly the poor, uneducated people who are not aware of religion because it's not a religious practice. Usually divided families, divorced, so you will have a missing parent or something. So it doesn't mean that every woman who talks to a man, she is subject to being killed, because this is what some people think. And I think the media somehow helped in embedding this thoughts into people's minds. Of course, the other thing is that these killings have nothing to do with religions at all, and specifically because I'm a Muslim and I come from a Muslim country, it has nothing to do with the Islamic religion. On the contrary, the Islamic religion is against these killings, and in cases of adultery, you have to have 4 witnesses to an act, and even if it's proven, it's not the individual that takes the law into his own hand, but there's a state or a ruler. Of course, in Jordan, everywhere in the world, we have a state and we have a law. So this has to be also very clear. The other thing is that these crimes do not only happen in Jordan. I know also that the emphasis on television was Jordan and Pakistan a lot of times. For some reason, they decided that they want to target Pakistan as well. So you have to all know that these crimes do happen in other countries as well, in the Middle East, in Italy, in Brazil. Sometimes it happens here. I think you mentioned the violence against women in general in the US, also that a lot of women are killed by their partners. So there are violence against women is an international phenomenon. It happens everywhere. Sometimes like killing here goes under different naming. Also sometimes killing goes here also in what terms is a crime of passion. I'm sure you've all heard about this. So it's in a way it's sort of similar somehow. I hope that you got these points clear. Now I want to start to talk about my experience as a reporter. And I hope that my experience will probably teach everyone a lesson, because it taught me a lot of things. And I never thought that I was going to, any of what happened to me was going to happen to me, really. I didn't imagine that I was going to be, being a crusade for this topic. I didn't imagine that I was going to win an award, or I didn't imagine that I was going to be here or I never planned it. But once I was aware about the issue, I started to go on with it. And really the thing that awared me for the whole thing is that when I studied in the US, and I studied in Oklahoma, I know some of you might be surprised. First time I came to the US, I was in New York, so the immigration officer goes, "Where are you going to study?" I said, "Oklahoma." He's like, "Oklahoma?" I'm like, "Yeah, what's wrong?" Anyway, so when I finished my school here, I did my master's degree, and actually I was studying public relations and mass comm, and I never thought that I was going to be a journalist. It was really a coincidence. Back then, there was an American student who worked at my college newspaper. He wanted to interview me because I'm a Palestinian originally, but of course I was born in Jordan. During that time, it was the first Intifada. I don't know if you ever heard. It was in '87. So he wanted to interview me, and he wanted to know why the Palestinians were throwing rocks and the Israelis were shooting real bullets and all of that. So after he interviewed me, he said, "Why don't you come and work for the newspaper?" I said, "Okay, that's good. That's another activity that I can do in my life in Oklahoma." No, I'm just kidding. Of course, I also played basketball in the team, but I was a bench warmer. But it's good. I made it for the team. Although I'm the captain I was the captain of my national team, but it's better than nothing. So, of course, being an athlete, I started writing sports stories. And I think I started then, maybe somehow. I noticed that, of course, all the attention was only on men's sports, only men's basketball, men's soccer, Sometimes they would mention, like, the softball team winning every 3 or 4 weeks, or the basketball women. So I decided that, I want to write about women's sports. So all my target, and I used to take photos also. So I would go to the games, even softball. I didn't know what softball, we don't have it in my country. I learned the rules here, what goes on, who's the catcher, who's the first baseman, whatever, all these. I learned them here. So throughout my 6 years, I covered sports, only sports in the newspaper. So, am I speaking fast? I feel like you're... So, So when I went back home, I applied for the Jordan Times, and they accepted me, and my editor assigned me as the crime reporter. I don't know why, maybe I look somehow criminal or something. I said, okay, whatever. So it's a shift from sports to crime. So, so I started going and covering stories. Crimes of honor was never something for me, because I lived in a different atmosphere. Maybe I've heard once in my life a girl was killed. It was always in the back of my head. It was never something that I lived with, or it wasn't something that I was affected by. So after a few months, I started coming across these crimes. I remember once I wrote a brief about a woman who was shot by her uncle 22 times. The police did not give a motive for the murder, but of course after reporting, when I go back and look at my old stories, I figured out it was a crime of honor. Back then I said, God, why did he kill her with 22 bullets, One bullet is enough. God, how mean. Then a few months later, I read in an Arabic press. Of course, I write for the only English daily in Jordan. We are more liberal. We have our audience is mostly intellectuals, decision makers, the royal family, the foreign missions, all of that. So we have the freedom of writing things in detail. In the Arabic press, especially violence against women, of course, it's rarely mentioned. Honor crimes, if it's mentioned, which is also rare, they would have like a small brief, a woman was killed by her brother, police are investigating. As if telling the readers, okay, she's not a good girl, of course. So I heard about a crime that happened like 40 miles away from the city. So I drive all the way to the crime, and I discovered that it was a 15-year-old shepherdess who was killed by her family because they received a letter from someone accusing her of having an affair with another man or something. So I went and talked to the mother, and I was telling her, why did you do that? Why didn't you investigate the letter before you did anything? She said, it's her fate, and what can I do? I said to myself, how simple this woman is, talking about fate. It's not fate. So anyway, I report the story, and then the police discovered, later on, they discovered that this letter was sent to the family from a schoolmate. Her schoolmate was jealous of her because she was better than her in grades, so she sent the letter. And her family killed her just like this. But anyway, this was not the story that really shocked me. The shock came a month later. I saw a small item, a girl was killed. So, and they say that just were the neighborhood. It's not like here in the US, if crime happens, they tell you all the details, names, ages, addresses. Over there, it's very hard. You have to kind of dig it. So I went to the area where the crime happened, and I said, I have to ask people. So I parked the car, and I asked the man who was walking in the street, I said, have you heard, I heard there's a crime here. Can you tell me where's the address? He said, yeah, over there. I was close. So I said, I'll ask him why. So I said, you know why this girl was killed? He said, yeah, because her brother raped her. I said, no, you must be joking. He said, no, I'm not joking. Her brother raped her, so I killed her. I said, okay, I'm sure. I said, he probably got something wrong, he's probably mistaken. So I drove very close to the scene, and there was a barber shop. So I decided to go inside, and I don't want to go very close to the crime scene because you never know how the situation is. So I go to the barber shop. There were two men sitting and a barber. And I said hi, I heard, of course I was wearing a jeans and a tennis shoes to take off in case something happens. So I go in and I asked, I said, I heard there's a crime here, do you know anything about it? So the two men became so aggressive. Who told you, I said, oh, it's in the newspaper, so I showed them. So I sat next to them and I started arguing, I'm a reporter. I told them I'm a reporter, I did not lie, I'm coming here to investigate and stuff like that. So I said, why did you kill her? They said, because she's not a good girl. So when they didn't give me a direct answer, I figured it's true what the man said. So I kept talking to them. Then in the end they said, yeah, we killed her because her brother raped her. I said, but it's not her fault. If she's raped, it's not her fault. So one of the men looked at the other and he goes, what do you think? Do you think we killed the wrong person? He said, no, don't worry, we're fine. It's like, as if they were talking about a sheep or a goat. So I kept arguing with him. I said, but it's not her fault. Why did you kill her? You should have done something. Of course, I didn't say kill because I don't believe in killing. So, after pressing them, they said, well, she seduced her brother to sleep with her. And then I sort of felt disgusted in a way, and I came to the realization that somehow the society, and it's almost everywhere in the world, because I've been to many conferences, I've spoken to many women activists, and they, it's like sort of a trend that a lot of times women are blamed, even here in the States. If a woman is raped, a lot of times they try to blame her for the rape. So I came to the realization, which was something new to me, that women are also blamed for things that they are not responsible for. So I kept talking to him more and more and more. I said, but why would she want to seduce her brother? There are hundreds of men in the street. Why does she want, to seduce her brother? Then he looked at me and, they became very aggressive. And they're like, why are you dressed like this? Why are you here? Why do you care? You studied in the States, meaning that, I'm not a good girl, according to them, and all of that. So I decided to leave. Of course, I discovered that this girl was not a victim only once, or twice actually, rape and death. She was a victim maybe 5 times. She's only 16-year-old. She's a schoolgirl. She's still a child. She doesn't know anything in life. Her brother put sleeping pills for her and raped her several times. He threatened to kill her if she told her family. She had to tell her family because she became pregnant. She's only 16, and this is not common in Jordan at all. So she had to tell her family. He tried to kill her, but she survived. He went to jail. She had an abortion, and after the abortion, they married her off to a man like 30 years or 40 years older than her. that's because she's not a virgin anymore, and you know, she had an abortion and all of that. And 6 months later, this man divorced her. And the night he divorced her, they brought her home and killed her. Her other brother brought her home, bought her candy, told her, you'll be fine, everything's fine, took her to the kitchen, tied her up, gave her water, and asked her to recite certain verses from the Quran. If any Muslim knows that he or she is going to die, they say it. It's just the last words. And then he slit her throat, and he went outside, you know, saying that he cleansed his family's honor. So I report this story. It was really shocking to me. This story really, I think, is why I'm here today. So I report the story. The following day, my editors get a phone call from a Jordanian intellectual woman who works in a very high position, but she wasn't calling as a high position person. She's calling just as an individual, and she's Western educated. And she called and started screaming and yelling at my editors that they should stop me from reporting these articles because this is not us or our society, and that we are showing our dirty laundry, and you know, this thing does not happen in Jordan and all of that. So I can't tell you how furious I was, how disappointed, how depressed, or everything you can imagine I felt that day, because this phone came from a woman, and it's like everyone else, you know, who try to hide the truth. People just in my country, they think that solving the problem would hide the truth. They do not know that hiding the problem would make it bigger and uncontrollable in the future. So I decided that I want to show her and show everyone else in my society that this is us, this is our society, and that we need to face it. We need to face our problems, and we need to do something to solve our problems instead of hiding our heads in the sand. So I continued on, and I started, every time I would hear, I just said I'm going to target this issue. So every time I would hear about an honor crime, I would go to the scene, try to get as much details as possible, write it in the story. Even if a woman was pregnant out of wedlock, even if the woman, according to the society, did something wrong, I would write it. If she was innocent, I would write it. Later on, I started going to courts, and I discovered that not only the society applauds these killers, but also the justice system, because these killers were getting away with very lenient sentences. 3 months, 6 months, 1 year. And seems like even the criminal prosecutor was not interested in providing enough evidence to indict the suspect, you know, to have a higher punishment. So I felt that there is something wrong here also, and no one is really talking about it. So I started targeting the court sentences and started writing about these sentences which were never written in the Arabic press. At least these sentences were never reported. Of course, during these 3 years, we would get a lot of letters to the editor. You know, people were so upset about these crimes. There was a lot of protest about these, you know, people asking to do something about the justice system and all of that. And during this time, a lot of people would tell me, you know, why are you writing this? Nothing is going to ever change. So a lot of people made fun of me, and you know, you're wasting their time. Nothing will ever change here. But I was determined, and I never stepped back 1 minute. Every time I would report, I just decided that whenever I know something, I'm going to write it. And I was certain that someone will hear me one day. Someone will know about these things and do something about it, someone above. The last thing that I discovered before I talk about the bright side of the whole thing was that women who survive these killings, or if they become pregnant out of wedlock and the police, or for some reason a woman goes missing. What happens in Jordan if a woman goes missing and she's either way, if she's married or not, if once she's found, most of the time she has to go an examination to determine if she's a virgin or not, or if she had any kind. And they do that just to sort of protect her in case her family would want to maybe kill her. So I discovered that these women who survive these killings or who are under threat by their families are placed behind bars, meaning they are put in prison, they mix with other prisoners, and they are spending indefinite times without being charged. Some of them, for example, sentenced for adultery for 1 or 2 years, their sentence is finished and they are still there. And I went to the prison and I met a lot of women. They are all young, 17, 18, 19, wasting their life. They cannot be released. No one wants to release them. If their family wants to release them, it's to kill them. So I felt that these women are there. They can do something of themselves, but they are locked behind bars, and the aggressors or the people who are threatening their lives are enjoying their freedom. So I felt that this was also unfair, and people were not talking about this. So I also decided to target this, and I wrote stories about them. Anyways, the recognition finally came in November '97, when the late King Hussein, one time when he was opening the parliament, he directly talked about violence against women and children in his speech, which was the first time in history that the king really addresses violence against women. Shortly after that, the government came up with a proposal to cancel one of the articles that offers leniency to killers, Article 340. Now, what Article 340 says is that he, and it's only he, who discovers his wife or female relative committing adultery with another man, kills or injures both of them, is exempted from punishment. And he, again, only he, who finds his wife or female relative in an adulterous situation, which is a very flexible term, adulterous situation could mean anything, kills or injures one or both of them, benefits from a reduction in penalty. So the government decided to cancel this article. Of course, also the other thing is the royal family sort of started talking more about it after King Hussein talked. Princess Basma, which is the king's sister, also talked about violence against women. Prince Hassan, the king's brother, also condoned honor crimes on several occasions. So finally, there was movement going on. What happened after that is that the government decided to cancel this article. It went to the parliament, and this is where our struggle started. Of course, during that time, CNN came, ABC, and a Canadian television, and they all came, and that was after I won in '98 the Reebok Human Rights Award. I won it for all my work on this issue. So all of a sudden, a few months later, all these television stations came, and they were like racing. Everyone wanted to do a story about honor killing. So they all did their stories, and they came back and they aired it here in the US. And it really pushed things forward in Jordan, sort of. The government submitted the draft proposal to the parliament. A man came to me and said, we need to do something on the grassroots level, and we shouldn't just talk to the media, and I agreed. And we formed what Laura told you about, the National Campaign to Eliminate So-Called Crimes of Honor. We were a group of 11 individuals who would meet regularly every week. We are not professional. We were just meeting as concerned citizens. We did not register ourselves to strategize on what we need to do to sort of raise people's awareness and try to stop these killings in any way we can as concerned citizens who want to call for the right of life and the right of fair trial for all women and men. So we met for 6 months. During that 6 months, we decided that we wanted to collect signatures, and we wanted to go parallel with the government. Although Article 340 is not really implemented in courts, the killers benefit from another article, which is 98, which talks about he commits his crime in a fit of fury because of a dangerous act on behalf of the victim, if the victim did a dangerous act. And of course, they don't say honor, but dangerous act is related to honor somehow, it benefits from a reduction in penalty. And this is how the killers were getting away with, because of the fit of fury. And we felt that the fit of fury is very hard to cancel or amend, because it could apply to any other crime. It's not only honor crimes. So we said, okay, we will go with the government's proposal. To us, it would be a symbolic start, because to us, everything that was happening was something new. Even our committee, to be able to collect signatures, we printed pamphlets. On one side, we had the names and ages of victims in black and white. On the other side, we had facts and figures about crimes of honor in red and white and black. and we were distributing these pamphlets. So it was all a new experience for us and new experience for Jordan. So during that time, we started collecting signatures from people. We would go to other governorates. We would talk to people, try to convince them, that this is not religious. Some people did not even know these things exist, and we had to explain to them these things exist, all of that. Now the obstacle was our nice parliament. Our deputies, thanks God, God bless them, they passed the most controversial laws that did not benefit people. And when it came to this article, and as usual, in everywhere in the world, women and children's issues are always sacrificed by politicians. So when it came to this article, the deputies decided that we are a campaign that is being supported by the West, by the Zionists, and all our aim is to destroy the morals of our society, the morals of women. We want to encourage sexual freedom for women and all of that. And unfortunately, of course, I attended the debate. It was a 2-hour debate. It was the most disgusting debate I've ever heard in my life. It was only about women adulterers. There is no men. It's only women. I don't know who they commit adultery with. And that if this law is cancelled, this means all women are going to go out and sleep around, as if women are deterred by a law. And you know that it's women are, they held women responsible for the honor of the nation, the honor of their family. Women are everything. The men are angels. With respect to all the men who are here, no offense. It's back there. So anyway, the parliament decided to reject the government's proposal. Of course, for me, maybe the argument that the deputies had was much more depressing than the rejection. One day before the parliament was to vote for this article, I spoke to one deputy who was lobbying against us, of course, and telling everyone that we are a Western and Zionist movement and we're receiving foreign funding and all of that. So I was writing a story for the Jordan Times about tomorrow, the day after. So I wanted to call him and to get a quote. So he was women adulterers, women adulterers. So I said, excuse me, deputy, but you only talk about women. Aren't there men? He said, yeah, but women are more dangerous. I said, how? He said, well, women cause sexual disease, they transmit sexual disease. They are responsible of determining who the father of the child is. And if women do not commit adultery, then men will not find women to commit adultery with. So they will become good on their own. So I thought that was an interesting point that the deputy raised. So I decided to quote him, of course, in my story. And the following day, somebody took his quote and pasted it in a national debate in the internet. And somebody, of course, told him, because he doesn't even know how to speak English, that you were quoted saying this. So with the help of someone else, he said, no, the reporter took my word out of context and all that. Anyways, it's no big deal. Also during that time, our committee wanted to do a silent march, starting from the cemetery to the parliament. Because what happens is that most of the women who are killed are not properly buried. I don't mean not properly buried, they are buried, but the families, of course, most of the families refuse to receive them. They do not want to bury them, so the government buries them, but they do not have a name on the grave, or marker, whatever. So we decided that we want to go and they do not have a funeral, there's no funeral, there's no mourning or anything for them. So we decided to do the silent march. Of course, the government did not allow us to do it. Instead, with the help of some royal family members, we decided to do a public march starting from a certain point in the city to the parliament. And this march was led by two princes, as I said before, the king's brother and the king's cousin. And also this was a president event in Jordan to have a march to talk about violence against women and crime of honor. Of course, this march was met with a lot of criticism by all our favorite deputies and all the conservatives again, that that the two princes are trying to impose themselves on us. This is all from the West. It's the easiest thing to accuse someone. It's your West, and that's what they accused me in the beginning. Everyone was wondering, why is she doing this? Definitely, she's either supported by the West or the Israelis, or people do not understand that what we are talking about is a basic thing in life. It's preserving human life. No one has the right to take any individual's life. This is, it's basic thing, but I don't know for them why things are upside down. So the march happened, and it was sort of brought a lot of media attention locally and internationally. Also, there were a lot of lectures. Some religious leaders, open-minded religious leaders, came out and said, this is not part of Islam. Also Christians, because crimes do happen in Jordan among Christian society, but it's not as much as Muslims because the percentage is much smaller. So there was a lot of movement for maybe 4 or 5 months, but after that the issue died, and until now the issue is dead. We don't know yet. As a committee, we are trying to decide whether we want to raise it again, because of course elections are approaching again, and we are almost definite that our favorite deputies are going to use this issue again as their campaign advertisement. So this is the situation right now in Jordan. I'm going to stop here because I want to hear more from you, and thank you very much. Thank you. I had to drink. I just had Chinese. Lovely. Had a lot of soya sauce. So any questions, comments?
If you could stand up, and then, Ron, if you don't mind repeating it. So
yeah, she's asking about the name of the committee. The committee is called the National Jordanian Campaign to Eliminate So-Called Crimes of Honor. Okay, she's asking if I was ever threatened or under attack by anyone because I was reporting about this issue. Well, I think, as I said, that when I went to talk to these men, they became so aggressive in the end I had to leave. But I think the real attack or aggressiveness or threat came after the CNN program. I received a lot of emails from Arabs who live here, mainly Jordanians. I don't know, most of them did not specify their citizenship. A lot of them were upset. Of course, now in the CNN reports, I appear, they talk about me playing basketball, so I appear playing basketball in a short. It's only normal. So I received an email from an Arab man who was so upset that I appeared on CNN with a short, as if he doesn't even remember, all his concern was that I appeared in shorts. It doesn't matter that all these women are killed, and that, I should cover myself, and I should talk about Islam and how good Islam is and all of that, and I shouldn't talk about these things. Anyway, that was not the threat. The threat came after the CNN program. I had a person who kept writing me emails for a year, or during debates, telling me that I need to stop doing this because, this is not going to solve any problem. This issue is never going to be solved, and that all I'm doing is tarnishing the country's image. And that he even once sent an email and said, if you don't stop, I will send someone to visit you at home or at the newspaper. Of course, I didn't listen to him, and I sent him an email back, and I told him, you live in the States. If this problem really bothers you, why don't you come back and try to solve the problem in your country instead of living in the States and criticizing me and attacking me from abroad. Of course, he kept we would have debates on national internet, and he would also, he would say the worst things about me, but I used to not reply to him because I feel it's a waste of time, and there were a lot of people who were replying. There was another man who was upset because he had problems with his American wife, and he had fixed all his problems, but when CNN program came, his problems came back. So he was upset, and he sort of he almost held me accountable. Of course, I wasn't alone in the CNN program. It's too bad it's not working. There was a lawyer with me, Queen Noor was with me, there was a coroner with me. It wasn't only me. There was a killer talking how he proudly killed his sister. It wasn't only me, but for some reason he wrote me an email and said, you know, if he's divorced, that he's going to come back to Jordan and prosecute the person who's responsible. And of course, sending this email to me. But of course, these emails and all the threats do not scare me or deter me, because I believe in what I'm doing, and I know what I'm doing does not violate anything in life. Again, as we're talking about, it's all basic human rights. And I believe whoever is opposing me is wrong. I don't believe that I'm wrong. I believe in what I'm doing, and I'm going to do it until one day things will change in Jordan, hopefully for the better.
Has the attitude of the Arab press changed at all, or is the Jordan Times still the only newspaper in Jordan to cover the issue?
Yeah, as I said, after the march and during our campaign, the press sort of moved a little bit. There was a lot of editorials. There was a lot of columns being written, which was, in the past, you could rarely read a column. The other important thing is that we raised the public debate. I said we went and talked to people. Even in the press, we raised the public debate, because there were people writing against the issue, people writing against us or against the issue people are with. And we believe that this is the way to change things, with public debate. And the important thing is that they were covering these things. If there were lectures, they would talk about it. There were more features about women in prison, more features about the problem as a whole, from legal, social, all these aspects. But the only thing that did not change so far, and I hope one of these days that will change, is covering the crime itself, the details of the crime, and the court verdicts. Until now they are writing court verdicts, but they are only saying a man was sentenced to 6 months for killing his sister. But they do not say anything. They do not say why. So I think these are the only two things that need to change, and hopefully by time.
I have another question. How many of these crimes do you think
Okay, annually, I would say between 20 to 25 women are killed in Jordan. Our population now is 4.7 million, which is not many, but to us, a lot of people even tell us, you know, what's this number? Why are you starting all this issue? It's not worth it. Of course, to us, every soul is worth fighting for. I believe that the number might be a little bit higher. Maybe it could reach 30. The reason is sometimes if a woman is killed accidentally, it could be a crime of honor. Sometimes it's very hard. Also, if a woman commits suicide, sometimes she might be pushed to commit suicide, or she's probably poisoned or something and they say she committed suicide. But I don't think it's more than 30.
What are the ramifications for adulterous men?
What do you mean?
Like adulterous women are killed by their family. What are adulterous men?
Well, now in adultery you have to have a complaint. The authorities cannot persecute anyone unless there's a complaint. Okay. Now the thing, if I understand your question right, men are not punished. Okay. In the eye of the society, most of them are heroes. If they sleep with women, yeah, they're men. You know. It's okay, it's no problem. Although they are sleeping with other women's brothers and all of that, but it doesn't matter. As long as no one approaches his sister or his mother or his aunt, but he can approach anyone else. But, you know, this, unfortunately, some of these people are so greedy. I've interviewed one killer and I said, you know, okay, you killed your sister because you thought so and so. Would you go out and sleep with? He said, yeah, I would go out and sleep with women. I'm a man. You know, no one can say anything to me. Now, there's another question a lot of people ask me. Well, is there any men killed in crime? Is there any men killed, or it's only women? I would say throughout my 7 years of reporting, maybe there was only 2 men reported killed. And the reason of all the crimes I have written about, maybe over 150 crimes or something. Of course, the first reason is most of the time there is no man. Sometimes it's, again, as I said, incest, rumor, suspicion, a letter, it could be anything else, inheritance. Now the other thing is, killing a man is much more troublesome. Meaning, if a family kills a man, They have to go through a tribal settlement and maybe pay the victim's family, the male victim's family, money to, quiet them. And they might be afraid of revenge in the future if that family decides to take revenge and kill somebody from their family. So it's much easier probably to kill a woman than to kill a man.
You're referring to figure passing that. Is that called Wasta? The reparation?
Wasta, it's a tribal settlement. Jaha it's called. Tribal settlement. Okay, she's asking if I can talk about why the honor crimes happen in poor, uneducated families rather than wealthy families. Okay, of course I'm not a sociologist, but I've listened to a lot of sociologists and I interviewed a lot of sociologists to try to see why these happen. Of course, I'm sure even here in the States, I don't like to compare Jordan to the States, but usually most of the violence and crime also happen here among the poor and uneducated people. Back home, what I heard once a sociologist talk, and I believe what he's saying is right. He said that most of these people do not have anything. They do not own anything. They do not own their house, they're poor, they're jobless, they do not own a car, they do not own anything. So they want to own something. So they change the perception of, or the understanding, or the identification of honor, which is of course something very high. Honor is something very high. They change the belief in accordance to their belief, and they clinch to it. And of course, since we still live in a sort of patriarchal society, women are considered as followers, and they are considered as, of course not all of them, again, some of them, and they are considered as being responsible for the honor of the family. So if a woman breaks this honor, the only solution is to kill her. For some families, they describe women and their virginity as a glass. Once this glass is broken, you cannot fix it. And the only solution for them is blood. Blood cleanses honor. But again, this is in not everyone, some families. Again, and another thing is that a lot of people do not understand the religion. A lot of people follow what they like from the religion. The religion does not say that you can kill someone, regardless of whatever. They would follow the religion in other things. For example, inheritance, they would follow it by the book, because it benefits men, so inheritance, it's fine. They would go and drink and sleep around, it's okay, they can do that. But when it comes to things that they benefit from, they go by the book.
Following up on the question, is there a higher number of honor killings in areas where the Muslim Brotherhood has a higher influence than in other areas?
Okay, he's asking if there's an honor crime happening in areas where there's an influence of Muslim Brotherhood. Okay, first of all, if you're talking about Jordan, the influence of the Muslim Brotherhood is not very strong. There is really no accurate statistics. Now, one of the difficulties we face as reporters in all fields, not only in honor crime, is lack of statistics and lack of knowledge. Meaning, as I told you, that this is, 25, but this is not an accurate number. And everything else, it's very hard. We don't have that great of a scientific statistics. In terms of these areas, I can't really tell you yes or no, because there's not good statistics to count on. But the Islamic Brotherhood, unfortunately, stood against us in our campaign and accused us again of being, although in the religion, you cannot accuse anyone of anything unless you are certain, but for some reason, and also because they have not taken a very tough stand on many of the social issues that they should have. And they were losing trust of people, and they were losing their credibility. So when this issue came, they decided to show that they're still there, and that they're taking a stand. They even issued a fatwa, which is an Islamic decree, that this article should remain because it will preserve the society's morals, and they referred to a certain saying from not the Prophet or not the Quran, from a Khalifa. He said this, and they took it out of context, and they put it and printed and issued a fatwa, and they asked they wanted a permission to do a parallel march, to march against us. So it was really unfortunate. I was disappointed, but again here we see that not all the parties really, I don't think they really stand for what they believe in, because this is a very clear issue, and it's very clear, and it's stated in the Quran that you cannot kill. In adultery, you have to have four witnesses. God made it so hard, and even if it's proven, it's not the individual who take penalty, it's the law. So we were really disappointed. And then when you tell them about these cases, they tell you you're lying and you're exaggerating, and these things do not happen. Now, thanks God that medical officials like coroners, pathologists, they became so aware of the problem, and they are standing with us. Meaning, if there's a crime, they will tell us about it. They will say it's a crime of honor. This is how we document it. Because the police, in '98, when the issue became a top issue, a hot issue, all of a sudden, the statistics, I reported that year 20 cases. Only, and I'm not going to be able to know all the cases. I reported about 20 women. They issued numbers. Of course, all the years, the numbers they had were 20, 21, 30. It was all above 20. When we started focusing on the issue, when I started focusing on the issue, the numbers started dropping. In that year, they claimed that there was only 6. Yeah, it's funny. And then once we were at a conference, and the police official said, this year there's only 6. So of course, I immediately opposed to what he said, and I said, I reported 20. There's no way it could be 6. So he said, well, I don't know where you got your numbers from. He's trying to make fun of me. So I said, well, I got my cases and my numbers from you, not him, but his department. So he couldn't say anything. So I hope I answered your question.
I was wondering, why do politicians find it beneficial to oppose your campaign, or like to go for the honor killing? Is it because you believe in it, or is it because other people believe in it?
Okay, this is a long answer. Okay, there's 2 things. First of all, I'm going to talk about the lower house, which is elected by the people. The election system in Jordan does not really represent the people, meaning there is some gaps in our election system which let certain people only reach the house. Okay, this is one thing. Now the other thing, most of these people come from really not the best background. Most of them are there just to say that I'm a deputy. Most of them are there to, whenever any politician, any person who wants to reach a political position, most of them wants to because it's power, okay? It's all about power. So most of them want to be there because they want to be in power. Now, as I gave you one example of this deputy, what he told me, remember, okay? I will give you another example. Now the upcoming elections are coming up in November. Women groups in Jordan have unified, and they wrote several demands asking for changes in the election law, as I said, because it's a problem. And in their demands, they asked for, of course, because we do not have any women in the parliament. We only had one woman in the history of Jordan in '93, and she had hell when she was in parliament. So women decided, instead of asking for a quota because they would raise a lot of controversial issues, they said they will ask for a 20% representation of each gender. Of course, this did not work. The deputy said, now this is a quota. We do not want to give you a quota. Of course, why don't they want to give them a quota? Because if they give them a quota, they might lose their seats, because if they might give up their own seats. Now listen to the justifications that the deputies had to give why they do not want a quota for women in Jordan. One deputy said that women still did not develop themselves, and they're not experienced in life. Although we have a minister, we have women working in all. We have a taxi driver. We have women as a pilot. We have all kinds of women working in all kinds of sectors. But still, to that deputy, women did not develop yet. They are not experienced. And you can't force them on a society that does not want them. Now another deputy, and this was the most amazing deputy. And every time I write a story, I repeat what he said. They had a meeting with the press to talk about the election law. Now in the meeting, everyone but one woman from our newspaper was at the meeting. So one of the press people asked this deputy about women's quota. What does he think about the women's quota? Now the deputy did not see the woman. He did not recognize that she was there. So he said, you know, no, we can't have women in the parliament because, you know, they can't stay late at night. If they stay late at night, they're going to tarnish the family of the image of their family, and they're going to jeopardize the family's honor. And if my daughter was a deputy and she came back late, I will shoot her and kill her. This is not it. Then he said also, we can't have women in the parliament because we are going to get distracted. If we keep looking at their breasts, we cannot concentrate. And before that, and this is when the deputies told him that there's a woman sitting with us. Before that, he said, you know, a woman deputy cannot perform a deputy's job. They cannot go for a tribal settlement. They cannot go to ask for somebody in wedding, as if this is all the deputy's job, you know, to show that they are deputies and to go do these social activities which they are not supposed to be doing anyways. So when he saw this female journalist, he apologized that he said these things in front of her, and he begged her not to write. Of course, she didn't listen to him. She reported, but she didn't put his name. But he told her, even if you were not here, I insist on what I'm saying. Okay? Now, the other thing is, you say, why do they... It's a bargain, okay? It's a bargain. They want the government to do certain things for them. Okay, you do these things, we pass you certain things. There are, like, for example, now we have the government increased taxes on citizens by 13%. 13, not 7 like in the US. So for every dollar, we have to pay 13%, not 7 or 6 or whatever. Now, why didn't they take a stand? This is against everybody's interest, you know, against the people's interest. We are suffering, Jordan is suffering financially, people are very poor, the salaries are very bad, and the last thing people want on earth is to have tax increases. There are other things. There were 4 Jordanian citizens who were accused of terrorist acts, and you know that they belong to Hamas, which is a terrorist group supposedly, and they expelled them from the country, like you, an American being expelled from Jordan, from the US. I'm sorry. Would you accept this? This happened there. What did the deputies do? Nothing. So it's a bargain, you know. We will pass these things, but women's issues, it's no problem, you know. Any other questions? Okay, she's asking me about the support of my editors. Of course, if it wasn't for the newspaper and the support of my editors, again, I would not be here. From the beginning, I got a lot of support. My editors believed in what I'm doing. I felt that I was on a mission, and I felt that they were with me on this mission. And I was never deterred or stopped, or they never rejected an article for me. Not even any article. Not